Hello again everybody, so today I'm back for day 2 of my 7-day video spree, and today again is something a little bit different. It's something I've touched on before, one of the books I got from a second-hand bookshop. What I'm going to do with it is a little bit different to normal, so you'll see when I explain what the book is. It's this, Beginning in Bookselling by Irene Babbage. So I saw this for 50p in a second-hand bookshop and thought, right, I'm really intrigued to see what it was like when this was published in 1965, what the differences are in bookselling. So, picked it up. It's only tiny, gave it a really quick read, and there's quite a few really interesting things I found which I want to talk to you guys about. So another reason why I'm doing this is because there was loads of really good feedback on my video about my job. So this is going to give you a little bit more of an insight into what I do on a daily basis, and I hope you guys enjoyed this just as much. So I'm going to be looking at how bookselling was described in 1965, in comparison to how I find it is now. There's quite a lot of changes to what's in here, but also quite a lot of similarities. So I'm just going to get straight started, and one of the very first bits in here just says, a bookseller's primary job is to sell as many books as he can. Bookselling is a highly specialised trade. To be successful calls for knowledge and intelligence, as well as a wide interest in people. That's all quite true still, I find. I think the job description for a bookseller is very same again. You have to be very personable, you have to be interested in books, and you have to develop quite a lot of knowledge about them. So that's kind of a pat on the back, like, yeah, that's me. But basically the exact same. It's good to know that despite how everything else changes, the general gist of what bookselling is stays the exact same. Something else that I thought was really interesting in here was a discussion of how many books are available. So it's not one of those numbers I've ever really known. I've always wondered, like, how many books are currently available, how many books are being written. And it's really interesting to see the differences between then and now. So in 1965, Irene was saying that there were 200 to 300,000 books available in print, plus an extra 20,000 every year. Obviously some older ones will go out of print, so the number stuck around 200 to 300,000. Having looked at the recent year data for now, more than 20,000 books are published a year. In fact, in 2011 there were nearly 150,000 books published, so that's a drastic difference. So that's going to have a massive impact. And most recent estimates suggest that there are 13 million books currently in print. So that's obviously like a huge increase on what was available then, which means obviously that bookselling and reading is a lot more varied than it was then. So I find that really fascinating to see that. I thought there'd be a difference, thought it would have grown, but by so much is incredible. Something that I found really funny in here actually was a discussion on customers in general. So Irene's quite negative towards customers, to say the least, and she has a bit of a moan about customers who leave books in the wrong place. There's a lovely little passage where she talks about what browsers are. So she says, browsers is a term used in bookshops to describe people who like to wander around the shop, taking books out and looking at them. Sometimes they put the book back in its proper place, sometimes in the wrong place. Sometimes they just leave it anywhere on a flat display stand or table. I have to say that's still very true. We're not quite as disparaging as Irene is, but that is one of the most frustrating things, is that often if someone picks up a book and puts it down in a random place, we cannot necessarily find it again. One of my personal favourites is I once found a book of lesbian erotica in the children's section. So that would have been a very disappointed child if they'd taken that home with them. Probably some disappointed parents as well. But it's really interesting that obviously that's going to have been a thing that carried on. And it's refreshing to know that it's not just me that gets a bit frustrated with that. Back in 1965, it talks a lot about how everything was done by hand. Stock counting, searching for books, researching reviews, researching the availability of titles, etc. was all done by hand through, magazines and catalogues. I'm so glad we have computers nowadays, because there's so much we do through computers that makes life so much easier for the bookseller. So whether it's ordering stock, checking whether something's in, working out when something was published, what the author's name is, all these kinds of things are so much easier nowadays, and I've never been more thankful for computers. Back in 1965, she also talks about the importance of press reviews and radio and television appearances. So obviously nowadays these are incredibly significant. So before Christmas, Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, was on TV, made a huge difference, and the Private Eye Annual, Ian Hislop was on telly, talked about it, and we sold out both of those books in the run up to Christmas. And even things like TV adaptations and film adaptations, The Hunger Games, for example, we sold a huge amount of when the film came out, because the film came out. So it's something that we're very aware of, that media is particularly important in bookselling. But it's quite interesting to hear that it was then too, because obviously we're a much more media technology focused society now. But it is refreshing to hear that back then, even though it might have been newspaper reviews that were more significant, it did still have a significant impact. And it's another one of those things where it hasn't changed that much really, and it's really refreshing to hear. One of the most interesting parts of this is actually the last chapter, because it's it's a history of bookselling, essentially, which is not something I've ever really studied, and the book trade as well. And it talks about how in the 19th century, so the 1800s, there'd been a real decline in bookselling because of competitive discounting, and that people had started knocking more and more money off books, so that smaller booksellers couldn't survive. And it's really fascinating to hear that that happened. It bounced back, and now it's happening again. It's really, really interesting. And it's not something I'd ever thought about. I've not thought, especially that far back. I'd assumed it was kind of an internet age thing where they could offer better discounts, etc. But no, it's just fascinating to hear that there is that kind of cycle of it. And that this isn't the first time. So it fills me with a bit of confidence that the book trade is going to carry on, even with the hard times at the minute. So what I did find particularly interesting was that the prices had been fixed throughout most of the 20th century. So publishers had said these are the prices and bookshops weren't able to discount. So obviously it's very fair and even, but it's very, very interesting that it got to a point where they thought they needed to fix prices to fix the book industry. Now, nothing like that will ever happen again, but actually it wasn't abolished till 1997. There were some sales places that had managed to find loopholes by then. So there were companies damaging books so that they could sell them for cheaper. Kind of, little nicks and things that customers wouldn't mind, but that enabled them to sell them cheaper. So it was very interesting to see that that kind of thing was necessary at the time, and that it was so recent that prices were fixed. So another fascinating thing that I got from the back of here that I'd never known about otherwise. So there you have it. Really interesting little book to read this. Anyone that's a bookseller, I recommend trying to find a copy of this and giving it a browse, because it's really interesting to see how it's changed. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I know you've enjoyed hearing about my job, and I'm hoping you enjoy this too. The links to all my stuff's in the description down below as well. Don't forget you've got another 4 days to get in your questions for the giveaway, and I'll be announcing the winner of that on Friday. But other than that, leave a like and comment if you enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.